Great, let's get started. So a very, very warm welcome everyone to this is the Workforce Nutrition Alliance Lighthouse webinar series. We have a brilliant lineup of experts and speakers with us today on an extremely important topic for health and well-being. So very warm welcome. I'm Sharon Bly. I lead health and sustainability at the Consumer Goods Forum. And along with our partners at GAIN, the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, we co-founded a number of years ago the Workforce Nutrition Alliance. And we need those lighthouse partners to shine the light and share the path forward and how we can really implement and bring better nutrition and better health to people all over the world. So the team from the World Benchmarking Alliance and of course OFI, who's implementing this with their employees, will share today how they're nurturing success from day one, right from the beginning, and showcasing the business benefits and the importance of investing in family first programs at work. This is one of the foundational pieces of the Workforce Nutrition Alliance and one of the four legs of our programs, which consist of healthy food at work, nutrition education, supporting breastfeeding mums, and nutrition focused health checks. Today's webinar is recorded. We will share everything with you afterwards. So if you're listening to this later on, we'll share our contact details at the end of the session so you can ask your questions if you weren't able to join live. So we will, of course, respect the antitrust caution statement that you can see here on the next slide throughout the Q&A session of this webinar. So what do you expect? Here's what we're going to guide you through today. I will be handing over to Christina from GAIN, where you'll see that interconnectedness of breastfeeding, paid care and parental leave. Samita from WA will bring us through company performance and what that is looking like in the world of benchmarking. The Bankandelli story, so great experience on the ground from Offie, and then Miriam from Melissa, and then Miriam will take us through nutrition and health, how it's embedded right into their sustainability strategy. And Sophia will do the excellent job of guiding us through a Q&A session. So think of your questions. It's a brilliant group of people, so don't hesitate to ask your questions live. If you're listening to this in the future, please do reach out to us. We will share our contact details at the end. So with that, enjoy the session. And Christina, I'll hand it over to you to kick us off. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Sharon. It's a pleasure to be part of this webinar today. My name is Christina Nias-Dillon. I work for the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition and work closely with CGF on Workforce Nutrition Alliance. So today I'm really excited to talk to you all about family-friendly workplaces, and I think they're so important for so many reasons, but we'll focus specifically on the importance of breastfeeding supportive workplaces. And this is particularly important for women's equality, women's health, and for child nutrition. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So why do we care about family-friendly workplaces? So workplaces can make family life easier, or they can make family life more difficult. And I think it's particularly true for women. We know that women take on more at-home tasks, which limits eventually women's advancement and leadership in professional positions. Some cultural norms do perpetuate this, but work sites can actively reinforce those or support women to advance, particularly working mothers. And this has implications on the gender pay gaps, again, implications on family health, women's health, and even business health, I think you'll see as I go through a little bit of the evidence. On to the next slide. So let's consider for a moment what choices women have when they're starting families and when they're working. Women who are entering motherhood and working for a family unfriendly workplace often, and if they want to be able to nurse their infants, what can they do? One, they can leave their jobs, leave the workforce. They can choose not to breastfeed. They can choose to breastfeed, but suboptimally, and sometimes without much dignity, as you can see in this bottom left picture. This is a woman who is nursing on a bathroom floor. Or they can find an employer who wants to support them as a mother. So family-friendly workplaces can support women to stay at work, and they can remove barriers so that children can be breastfed should the mother choose to do so. Next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit about the benefits of breastfeeding. So the WHO recommends exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months. So that means only breast milk for 6 months, and then continued feeding for at least 2 years. And there is unequivocal, long-standing evidence that breastfeeding is best for the child and also for the mother. So in the short term and the long term, breast milk confers better health, immunity, better growth, and cognitive development for children. This is very well established. But also women are protected if they choose to breastfeed. So women who breastfeed recover faster from childhood, and they have reduced risks of cancer, diabetes, CBD, and other illnesses. And then to top it all off, breastfeeding is much more convenient than bottle feeding and having to make sure the bottles are sterile and clean all the time and transporting those around. So what do we know a little bit about the evidence of workplaces that support women to breastfeed? We know that in those situations, there's strong evidence that facilitating women to continue to breastfeed if they want to actually does improve the rates of exclusive breastfeeding and breastfeeding duration. And on top of that, there are also business benefits. This is in terms of reduced absenteeism, reduced turnover, so attrition of women leaving the workforce, and lower health care costs for the businesses. In fact, in the US, there have been various data sets that have been analyzed, and it's estimated that there's a return on investment of 3 to 1. So that means every dollar invested in a breastfeeding support program or project is a $3 return to the company. And that's pretty powerful. Next slide. So I'm just going to go through a couple interesting slides from some of the literature. This one looks at retention rates of women. So the national average, only about 59%, this is from US, only about 59% of women stay in their jobs when they choose to have a family. But among companies that have strong lactation support programs, 94% of women return to work after delivery. That's pretty powerful. And let's see, if you go to the next slide, this is another really interesting study. So this looked at absentee rates among female workers who breastfeed their baby versus those who formula feed. So breastfed children are sick less often, and therefore their mothers take less sick days and are less absent at work. So this is great for kids, it's great for women, it's great for the companies. And then if you think about wage workers, that also means that women earn more if they're earning a daily wage and they are sick less because they're absent less, or they're able to work more because their children are not sick. Next slide. So just to go over a little bit what the recommendations are from the ILO and from a recommendation 191 and convention 183, what are the basic packages that are recommended to support women to continue to breastfeed at work? So maternity leave, and this is at least 14 weeks is recommended, but up to 6 months or beyond. There are a lot of countries that recommend that have policies for 6 months, and that is even better than 14 weeks. This also means that they should be paid during this time, and at least 2/3 pay, if not full pay. Women and children should be protected with health, antenatal care, or insurance. There's also recommendations around non-discrimination, which means women who are in reproductive age should not be discriminated against being hired. And women returning to work after maternity leave have some protection of their job. And then last but not least, workplaces should also support women to express milk during work hours. So that can be in the form of lactation rooms and also breastfeeding breaks or shortened working hours or flexible working hours. And that's kind of the bare bones. But again, as I say, that there's a lot of country policies that have stronger policies than just the kind of ILO recommendations. So as you see, there are benefits to not only the workers, they're more satisfied with their job, they're more likely to return to their jobs. They have less sick days, increased earnings, and then of course, all the benefits that we know of breastfeeding for children in terms of growth and well-being, and for women as well. And then there's this kind of business case evidence for employers that there's reduced absenteeism, people are happy to work there, and there's potentially even a return on investment. And then we know this all contributes to society. We have stronger, healthier communities. We have stronger, healthier women in the workforce, and the gender pay gap potentially is also reduced. So it's a win-win-win. If you have any questions, or if you are looking to implement a breastfeeding support program in your company, we have a number of resources that you can look into at the Workforce Nutrition Alliance website, and happy to share those resources during any of the discussion. I will pass it over to Sophia. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Christina. That was really, really enlightening, and I think also flows really nicely right now. So first of all, maybe to introduce myself, I'm Sofia del Valle, and I work as engagement lead for social and gender topics at the World Benchmarking Alliance. And I'm really happy to be facilitating today's session and Q&A discussion. But right now, I'm going to actually hand it over to my colleague Samita, so that I can share a little bit some of the insights we're finding in our benchmarks. So we heard from Christina, why is this important for employers to be doing? And now we can hear from Samita and kind of what are we finding in terms of how much companies are implementing and disclosing in terms of these topics. So over to you, Samita.
Thank you, Sophia. I'm just going to pull up my screen. I believe you can see my slides. Can't see you, so.
All good.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sophia. It's great to be here. Thanks for having the World Benchmarking Alliance here, so we can also share a little bit about how companies are performing on family first policies. And thank you, Christina, for the great presentation, which I think, like Sophia said, nicely kind of leads to our presentation. So we are today going to present to you the company's performance on family first policies in the gender benchmark that we published in December last year. And I'm Samita Thapa, and I lead the research for the gender benchmark at the World Benchmarking Alliance. Before jumping into the findings, just to give you a little brief introduction to the World Benchmarking Alliance, or WBA, we're a nonprofit that develops free and public benchmarks to measure and compare company performance on the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is because we believe that companies have a big role in either helping or hindering us from achieving the SDGs. And we provide our benchmark data set free to everybody so that all other stakeholders can then act upon this to push for change in company performance. So how do WBA benchmarks work? Our benchmarks are based on methodologies that we create in-house, but these methodologies are based on existing normative standards and also are made up with consultations with a wide range of experts and stakeholders, including other benchmarking and standard setting organizations. The gender benchmark methodology specifically, we also anchor it in the SDGs, particularly the SDG 5 on gender equality, as well as key gender initiatives like the Women's Empowerment Principles. Our research process starts with our research team looking at companies' publicly available information on their website. So this includes annual reports, sustainability reports, the company's policies, and anything else that the company has published. And we assess the company against our gender benchmark methodology, and also provide an opportunity for the company to contribute to our assessment of the company before we finalize the benchmark results. In the 2023 benchmark, gender benchmark, we applied the entire benchmark methodology to 112 of the largest apparel and food and agriculture companies, because these two sectors have a high proportion of women in their supply chains, and our entire gender benchmark methodology actually goes deeper into the supply chain. And additionally, we assessed a total of 1,006 companies on a subset of these indicators from our methodology. So this allowed us to take a look at gender equality performance of companies both at scale and as well as in depth. So how did these companies perform? So overall, when we look at the performance of these companies in gender, it might not be surprising, but yet it's still disappointing that most companies are not even halfway when it comes to gender equality. You'll see that the highest scoring companies are just halfway, between 50 to 60% out of the 100% full score in gender equality. And also the overall average out of 100% was just a 17% from these 1,006 companies. And 12% of these companies actually scored a 0 across all of the indicators that they were assessed in. So while this really is kind of painting a disappointing look at the company's journey towards gender equality, this raised a question for us about what is it that these top performing companies in this group, what are they doing that sets them apart from their peers? So in order to do this, we took a look at the top 100 companies in our data set to see what are they doing differently. And we found that what these 100 top companies do differently is that they publicly commit to gender equality, which could mean being a signatory to the Women's Empowerment Principles, or having a high-level tone, a high-level sign-off on how the company's committed to gender equality. And also, they're actually doing better than their peers in providing childcare and family support to their employees. And in family support, this is where we also look at how the workplaces are supporting breastfeeding as well. You'll see that of the 100 companies, top 100 companies, 73% of them actually have a public commitment to gender equality compared to just 20% of their peers. And similarly for childcare and family support, while almost 60% of them provide this to their employees, their peers, among their peers, it's only 20% of the companies that do so. We also looked at flexible work, and out of the 100 companies, 75% of them provide flexible work arrangements to their employees, whereas just 33% of the remaining companies do so for their employees. So if we were to take a closer look at how companies are addressing these care topics that we see in these slides into their policies, we took a closer look at the company's policies on parental leave. And here we saw that only around 1/3 of the companies that we assessed disclosed their parental leave policies in their own disclosures. And unfortunately, a very small percentage of them, as you can see on our graphic, actually cover their employees from around the world, which means that only some of their employees benefit from their parental leaves. Many companies tend to rely on the legally mandated parental leave in the countries that they operate, but sometimes not all countries meet these ILO mandated parental leave, for example. And also sometimes, as we've heard in our stakeholder engagement, that sometimes people themselves are not very aware of the legally mandated parental leave, and sometimes that can be taken advantage of. And it's important that the company is actually making that transparent and providing that to all of their employees. And while parental leave is crucial for both parents, we saw how maternity leave is key to also promoting breastfeeding. And because of this, we took a closer look at maternity leave, and we see that only 7% of the 1,006 companies actually met the standard that was recommended by the ILO of a minimum of 14 weeks. And you can see the range of what companies offer here. And after looking at maternity leave, also once the mother goes back to work, it is crucial that companies provide paid time off for breastfeeding so that women are not left to make a choice between breastfeeding or getting paid. So when we looked at our research, we saw that only 30 out of the 1,006 companies actually explicitly state that they provide paid breastfeeding support to their employees. But while this might seem very bleak, I don't want to make us feel like all is lost, because we saw earlier in our slides that there are actually companies that are performing better than their peers, and understanding that addressing care is very key to progressing towards gender equality. So there are companies that have best practices that we can learn from, and we'll actually shortly hear from one of the companies. And I want to just leave you with the hope that these findings actually help emphasize the importance of addressing care topics in companies' policies, which include supporting breastfeeding, so that we can move forward toward workplaces that are more family-friendly and have a pathway for women not only to stay at work, but also to thrive at work. And you can find all our resources in links that we'll send in the chat. But thank you for your time, and look forward to the discussion and Q&A.
Thank you so much, Samita. And actually, Kate kindly just shared all of our links here. So much appreciated, Kate. Now I'm really happy to hand it to two people that can speak from an example of a company that's actually implementing some of these steps. So I'm going to hand it to Melissa to speak about a really lived experience and this story of how you're working on this in Cote d'Ivoire, and then to your colleague later. So Melissa, to you. I think you're still on mute.
Hello,
There you
can
are.
you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Sophia. So everybody also can see me. I think we are good to go. So thank you for this moment. I really appreciate being there, being able to share this story. Today I am talking on the behalf of multiple people, myself, and inside myself, so many people, because I am talking today as the project manager of this story that I will tell you. I am also talking as a mother. I am also talking as a sister. I am also talking as an African woman. So there is so much people inside me sharing this story with you, and we are very happy to do so. So I am Melissa. I am currently working in OFI, Olam Food Ingredients in Ivory Coast, and I am the communication officer for the entire group in Ivory Coast. So basically, OFI in Cote d'Ivoire, we are doing cocoa, coffee, and cashew, but for your personal information, we are also doing spices and dairy in the entire world as OFI. So in Ivory Coast, we are talking about 5,000 employees all over the country for the procurement, the processing, and also all the support function. We are now temp employer for, we are going now on our 5th year in a row. So we are particularly proud of this certification, being top employer and actually being one of the top employers in the entire country. So yeah, and because we are talking about thousands of people in processing facilities, of course, we are working with a lot of women, and especially in the cashew business. So the story I'm going to tell is about the cashew business and the cashew processing facility. And basically in the cashew processing units, let's say that 80% of the people working there are women. The cashew commodity is a very specific one. So with, let's say, the heritage of this processing is that women are doing the peeling part. I hope that everybody's familiar with that. We all eat cashews. We love that. But this is a very tricky product because there is like a lot of process inside. So yeah. So basically in our facilities, we have around 80% of the workers there who are women. And that leads me to my story, which is the story of Bakandeni. So I will tell this in, in the most French way I can say it, Bakandeni. So Bakandeni is actually let's say we are like putting together two local languages, so two Ivorian local languages, which are Baoulé and Dioula. And it's actually the same word. So in one language, to say children, you say bakan, and in the other language, you say deni. And those are the two main, let's say, yes, the two main ethnicities that you can find in Ivory Coast. So we kind of, find a perfect name with that. So it's actually children. The name of the daycare is children. So Bakandeni's story started in 2021. I was actually a joinee, and I heard about this project that, okay, we have to build a daycare. So we were talking previously about like addressing like how companies are addressing actually those different topics about breastfeeding and nutrition and gender equality. And so at the beginning, actually, I really have to say that I was myself very skeptical about the project. Having a daycare, why would you have a daycare in Africa? I mean, we all know that African families, they are so big, there is always an auntie, a grandma, or someone, to take care of the kids. So I was myself skeptical, but in this urban area, because our Anyama processing facility is actually located, let's say, in the suburb of Abidjan. So it's still the urban area. And I realized that finally, the family that I was, assuming was not there. And a lot of women were actually struggling with this idea. So we started the project, and let's say the key takeaway of this project is partnership, because there is nothing that you can do as a company only by yourself. You always need to have partners. So we partner with some of our customers. We also partners with other, let's say, type of entities like international organization who are definitely more specialized, more dedicated to those type of topic, because as a company, we did not have like all the knowledge. And also we worked very closely with the Ivorian government, basically, because there is rule about like having a daycare, the way you are supposed to construct it, to build it, sorry. So it was very important for us to be aligned with what the country actually was expecting from a daycare. And that was the starting point. So we inaugurated Bakandeni in February 14th. So actually on Valentine's Day. It's a very easy way to remember this date, but it's also, kind of the love that we need in this type of situation. So we started with let's say at the beginning we had all something like 10 kids, but very, very fast all the mothers joined the daycares. They were like so excited and all, even if at the beginning they were themselves skeptical, because they were okay, do we really need that? I am not very sure, because this is my workplace and this is a very uncommon thing to have a daycare in the middle of a facility. So everybody was skeptical, but now we are 2 years after our grand opening during Valentine's Day, and we have 150 kids registered. So basically, when they registered, like they give their entire like health. Sorry, excuse me. They are giving their entire health record, so that we can, like have all the information. We have all the authorization and all those things. So now we currently have let's say three areas. The first one for the baby, so from 0 to 2-year-old, where they are mostly peacefully sleeping and peacefully enjoying breastfeeding time when their mother are coming. And we have the other room with a little bit more activities, because it's the 2 to 3-year-old, and here they are dancing, singing, actually cooking also. We have on nutrition day some activities regarding food, and also they, like they have their how do you say that in English, pancakes and all those things. They are doing this with the amazing team of Bakandeni. So definitely we are very proud and happy to have this daycare. It is actually one of the first certified daycare, so certified by the Ivorian government. The first certified daycare in Ivory Coast. And we are very proud, because we have seen that finally we are all full of assumptions. We are all full of assumptions about like the culture, the way women should do or should not do this coming after their maternity leave and all those things. And we realize that you need to actually practice to see what is going to happen, because like I said, I was myself skeptical at the beginning of the project. I was not a mother myself. And then my life changed. And actually, I was also, like part of those women being so happy to have a daycare nearby my office so that I can go time to time, check my son and all those things. Unfortunately, mine was absolutely not into breastfeeding, so he left on the way. Let's say that this way. But definitely I think that the main takeaway is the peace of mind that you have when you have your kid nearby you. As a mother, knowing like all the challenges that you can face, it is very peaceful to have that. So we are very happy to have this, also because definitely it helps to promote breastfeeding. So how it is happening, the women, they are working on shifts, so there is different shift throughout the day, and they have this possibility to just like take a break and come to the daycare, breastfeed. We have all the hygienic installations, so they can go to the restroom. They have also the how do you call that, the breastfeeding pumps. The breastfeeding pumps are also available, but in the culture it's more like breastfeeding. So they have this, like cozy area that we have been making so that they can sit and spend some time with their baby. So from that, from a business perspective, definitely I think that it has been said before, it creates a real relationship with our a real stickiness, a real they definitely want to stay with us. And how can I say this? There is no, I mean, in this area, there is no other option. And we have also seen that for them, it's also very cost saving, because in Abidjan, in those urban area I was talking about, you might have to, hire someone to take care of your babies. And after, let's say, 1 year of Bakandeni existence, a lot of mothers came and testified that, okay, I am no longer having a nanny at home because actually I don't need, because the daycare is there. So it means that you don't have to spend extra money. Also, you know that your kid is perfectly safe with all the all safe, sorry, in like very hygienic condition. The staff is well trained. We have like all those, like certification rules that we need to. So for one sorry for one daycare in charge, there is a certain number of children and all those things. So we are very focused on those numbers so that we can all have this peace of mind and safe environment. So what is the next step for Bakandeni? Continue to grow, definitely. And why not having Bakandeni 2 and Bakandeni 3? Because in fact, in Ivory Coast, as OFI, we have 9 processing facilities, so cocoa, coffee, and cashew. Of course, we will first focus on cashew because there is more women there, so that we can create additional daycares. But we are definitely thinking about having Bakandeni 2 and 3 in our other facilities that are now in the rural area. So like I said, to address something, you actually need to experiment that thing. So we have tried in an urban area. Now we will see in a rural area what are the challenges, because it's completely different. It's another way of life. So let's see and try and actually addressing those issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I think for these topics, it's so easy to just sometimes start talking about these abstractions when there's such real topics that I feel like also just like so many people probably in the panel, but also in the attendees group can relate to in their just daily lives as mothers, sisters. So much appreciated for bringing that. And I think we got some comments already in the Q&A and the chat saying that was really inspiring. So really appreciate it.
I was absolutely not able to read in the same time, but yeah.
That's why I'm
Thank
reading
you.
it to you.
Thank you.
So now I'm going to hand it to your colleague Miriam, that's going to speak about how nutrition health is embedded in OFI sustainability, kind of broadly speaking as well. So
Thank you so Yeah, thank you so much for that, Sophia. And thank you so much, Melissa. I think my story would never be as interesting as the stories we hear from colleagues like yourself who are actually close to what's happening um, with our employees, with our farmers. But I'm telling a little bit more about how that is embedded in the company's sustainability strategy, our strategy called Choices for Change. You should be able to see my screen. If not, please shout. Okay, great. So our sustainability strategy, as you would imagine, links back to the purpose of our company, and that is be the change for good food and a healthy future. And you immediately already see the word food in there, food and health. So you would not be surprised to see that nutrition and health is actually integrated into our sustainability strategy. And as a food ingredients company, Melissa shared already a little bit about OFI as a company, who we are and what we do. As a food ingredients company, it just feels very close to our heart to integrate nutrition into anything focusing on sustainability. So earlier this year, we launched our targets for 2030 and our broader strategy behind that. And the targets are listed here, and they are divided into 4 different buckets. So the first 2 are focusing on people. They are our social targets, so to say. So the first one focusing on prosperous farmers. So that includes livelihood support and living income, for example. And then the second one on thriving communities. So here we are focusing on human rights, but also on nutrition and health. So we have a target of reaching 750,000 households and for them to receive enhanced nutrition or health support. And as a nutrition and health manager in the company, this number is something that both is very exciting to me and also slightly frightening, which probably means that it's a good target, because I do feel we need to be very ambitious and of course realistic at the same time. Then we have our targets more focused on environmental sustainability. So we are focusing on climate action, on scope 1 and 2 and 3 reductions, and regenerating the living world. So this is about regenerative agriculture, becoming a forest positive business, and living landscapes where we have a more holistic view on what sustainability can look like in specific landscape settings. And then all of that is supported by what we call supply chain excellence. So this is where we're looking at traceability, risks and compliance, data and insights. So of course, in order to achieve all of this, in order to understand where we stand and where we need to go, we need to have that, that basis of having good data and insights and management of our sustainability efforts. And then specifically looking at nutrition and health, at nutrition actually in this case, I've listed some of the benefits on why we're doing this on this slide, and actually it has come back a few times, but let's say that repetition is always good. I think first of all, this is really, we see this as a way to improve employee health and well-being. I am working a lot together with my HR colleagues to look at what we can do for our own workforce, and this is really close to, of course, the other things that HR is doing, like just making sure that we have a workforce that is able to do their job, in a good way, and that is able to live healthy as well. And obviously that is also resulting in more productivity and efficiency, reduced absenteeism. And I think this relates back to what Christina had shared earlier, especially on breastfeeding support, where we see a return on investment, where we really see a business result also on investing in these type of efforts. And I think it also relates back to what Melissa had shared, like people actually being very keen to work with our factory in Nanyama, because there is this daycare service that has so many different benefits to employees. So increasing employee retention, or even attracting prospective employees, can be a part of that too. And related to that, also increasing morale and engagement, building a relationship with our employees. And then finally, I think it very well fits with OFI wanting to position as a responsible business. It fits with our broader sustainability strategy, with being a food ingredients company. And then this is to talk a little bit more about what exactly it means that we have nutrition and health embedded into our sustainability strategy. We are looking at these 5 different topics, and that is across both nutrition and health. And this is both for our own employees and for the farmers and communities that we source from. We are looking at nutrition and health education, access to healthy foods, health and nutrition screening, and counseling related to that, maternal and reproductive health. So this is where breastfeeding support would come in. And then access to healthcare and materials. So you can think about a clinic, for example. So for OFI employees, we have a target of reaching 100% of our primary workforce having access to nutrition support by 2030. And in order to do that, we're actually using a lot of the materials that were developed by the Workforce Nutrition Alliance. So we're using a scorecard to map out what is going on across all of our work sites and to see how all of those different work sites are doing. Because as you can imagine, we are operating globally. We have a huge variety of what all those work sites look like, who are our employees, what are they struggling with, and what are the resources we have available to support them. So mapping out what is happening is the first step towards improvement. And then we're working with all of those individual work sites to develop an action plan that suits their own ambition, their own context, and the needs of their employees. And in order to achieve all of this, I'm working closely with HR colleagues. So they are really our internal champions to make this work. And then on the other side, we are working with farmer and community households, and this relates to the Choices for Change target of reaching 750,000 households. So in order to do this, I'm working closely with my sustainability colleagues in country, who are then developing projects to reach, to improve nutrition and health for those farmers and communities that we work with. And of course, often doing that together with partners, because together we are stronger. They bring the expertise in. We have the close relationship with these communities. And I'm also making sure that my colleagues have the relevant tools and resources in order to develop nutrition and health projects together with those partners, because they need to be an expert on all these sustainability topics, which is a bit much. So I'm doing as much as I can to make it easier for them and help them identify what is needed to build strong nutrition and health programs. And all of that is supported at the bottom, you see here, by our internal OFI Healthy Living co-funding mechanism. So basically that means teams can send in a proposal to me at the beginning of the year on what they would like to do this year when it comes to nutrition and health. So that can be both for our own employees, it can also be for farmer and communities. And we can co-fund those projects for up to 50%, and the other 50% is paid for by the business themselves. So we really make it a team effort, and we want to accelerate efforts on nutrition and health by co-funding this. And currently the focus of those programs is on WASH, so water, sanitation and hygiene, but it would still also include a large focus on nutrition and health. So I want to close off with a quote from our Chief Sustainability Officer, Roel van Poppel, because I think people often associate a family-friendly workplace, breastfeeding support, we often associate it with women, which of course makes sense. But I think it's really important to take a step back and realize that it's not relevant for just women. It's relevant for all of us. It's a way of how we can demonstrate our commitment to gender equality. And again, I think this relates back to what you said, Christina, how we sort of make sure that the journey in women's careers is as smooth as possible, and we do not have these big hiccups when we are indeed coming back to the workplace and want to continue breastfeeding, that we sort of face a lot of challenges there and may even leave the workforce. So we're investing in gender equality, which benefits companies, and we're investing in the well-being of future generations. So yeah, that's much longer than what it says here, but I think you get the idea. So I want to leave you with that, and thank you so much, for your attention.
Thank you so much, Miriam. And I'll ask you to actually stay on camera, and I'm going to ask the rest of our panelists to also come back on video. So we can feel more like we're all together in a room, even though we're probably across the world. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing all of your expertise here. We have a few questions for you, and we still have a few minutes as well. So if anyone else has questions, please, in the audience, please put them in the Q&A box. But maybe I wanted to start with a question to you, Christina, in terms of, you were talking a lot about kind of the ILO recommended actions, but are there any other elements of breastfeeding support programs that you have found important based on experiences in practice?
Thanks, Sophia. I have my own personal experience, but I'll draw a little bit from the literature here because we've done a few kind of scoping reviews of workforce nutrition programs. And one of the things that the ILO doesn't necessarily mandate or recommend so much, but what has come up in effective programs are an element of kind of imbibing a community of supporting women to breastfeed or to not breastfeed, to her choice, but to not remove that choice from her, and supporting working mothers. So they're not being programs that are just kind of siloing women or siloing parents, but that the entire organization should be brought on board. So management should be well sensitized, but also colleagues and peers. So there aren't a lot of questions about, oh, why does she get breaks and I don't, if it's not obvious. So I think it's just kind of pulling together the entire kind of leaning in culture or in a workplace towards families and family-friendly policies and why they're important. I think that's one thing that kind of we put in our scorecards for the Alliance, but didn't necessarily come through clearly in the ILO recommendations. Thanks.
Thank you, Christina. And actually, speaking maybe of those scorecards, one question for Samita, which is actually something that we get asked a lot, is, I know that most of what you were presenting was a lot about what companies are doing in their operations, but have you found with the benchmarking of any evidence of what companies are doing on breastfeeding and supply chains?
Thank you, Sophia. So like I explained, we had this two-phased approach. So the 112 companies from apparel and food and agriculture sectors were the ones where we actually asked this question around the supply chains. And when we asked if companies require their suppliers to make sure that, that their workers in the supply chains are given maternity leave according to the ILO mandate, as well as paternity leave. So in that case, we actually found no companies had any written requirement of their suppliers to ensure this of their workers in the supply chain. When we looked at breastfeeding support for in the supply chain, so companies understanding that's a necessity and requiring their suppliers to support breastfeeding in the supply chain, we found 3 companies that actually had some sort of a support for lactation at work or breastfeeding, and these companies usually made sure that there was a hygienic and clean space for breastfeeding to happen in the supply chain premises. And also we saw in VF Corporation, one of the companies that also provided this, that they also had requirements that not only is there a safe and clean and accessible place for breastfeeding, but also that they there's refrigerated storage if mothers would choose to then pump and store their milk. So I think we are starting to, so which is really exciting to actually see that Ofi also has these initiatives in, farmer and community households. I think, so that's already great to see that, there's really good practices that we can learn from each other. However, in the disclosures of companies that we looked, there wasn't much that we found, but still, I think there were some good practices in there as well.
Thank you, Samita. And actually, maybe that leads me nicely to you, Melissa, in terms of, I think there was also an invitation and a call to action when you were sharing about the program that you're implementing as well. So maybe this question of like, maybe we're not seeing right now as many workplaces or as many processing plants that are implementing this thing, but after your experience, why would you say companies should be implementing these programs in their workplaces and work sites?
Why? Sorry, I did not get your question.
Why do you think companies should start breastfeeding programs and kind of childcare facilities in their work sites? What's maybe the invitation? What's the benefit that you're seeing?
Like I said, the benefits is, wherever you are at peace, you stay. And I think it's like valid for any human being. And like targeting this, I mean, I said it all. When you have peace, you just stay where you are because you feel that, okay, there is the environment when I can actually blossom without having these, like mental charge in my head as a mother and as a lot of things. For example, not only because we were talking about breastfeeding and like the mother side, but there is also the father side, and we are also very happy to welcome more and more fathers coming to our daycare with their kids. And you also feel that they are very proud, like there is this little feeling of, yes, I am bringing my daughter or my son to my daycare, so also my colleagues can see my son and all. It creates something. And where you find such a place, I think that definitely you stay. And even if you might have some challenges, because life is like this, you are always facing challenges in your work environment, but this definite like this is bringing peace.
That is, really nicely and really poignant as well. Maybe and I see that Christina answered to one of the questions as well in the chat, but I wanted to ask if anyone else wants to comment or maybe expand on this kind of question about what happens, for example, if line managers are complaining that women's absence from workstations, basically they're using breastfeeding as a pretext. Like, how do you deal with maybe this less nice angle on how these programs are received? I know it's a tricky question, or maybe Christina, you can share a little bit more about so that's also part of the conversation here.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, I think maybe that goes back a little bit to what I was saying about kind of having a culture of supporting women and it being very transparent that, okay, there are breaks that are given to women to express milk or to breastfeed or to leave work early, to go home to do so. And that's just kind of where everyone can be held accountable because it's very clear what those breaks and timings are. And then it doesn't kind of open up, questions to why someone might be taking additional time off. But I think my general recommendation would be transparency and clarity.
Thank you. That's really, really clear. And Miriam, a question for you. And I know you are presenting the sustainability strategy, but I think many probably companies in the audience kind of relate that sometimes it's not so easy to prioritize and to position a topic within the sustainability strategy in such a central way as you have health or nutrition topics. Maybe you could share a little bit about kind of the challenges of integrating this into the strategy and how you're mitigating and addressing those.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is indeed quite unique. So I'm very happy that OFI has my position in the Central Sustainability as team as Nutrition and Health Manager. And it is indeed challenging that many of the customers we work with, but also looking at rules and regulations that are currently there. Very often they are not looking at nutrition and health. And that is also why we're very happy with initiatives like the World Benchmarking Alliance or the Workforce Nutrition Alliance, who are putting a spotlight on that and sort of giving that external pressure / encouragement to start working on this. And internally, I'm indeed very glad that we have it in our targets now, because that helps me to bring colleagues along in this journey and to sort of highlight why we're doing this in the first place, and then sort of help them to start implementing it. And I think inspiring examples like what Melissa shared, they help a lot as well. Like, we all need those. I think both whatever is coming from research, that we sort of see the benefits of it, but also combining that with inspiring stories and sort of knowing better how we can actually do it and how we can integrate it and link it to other sustainability topics. I think merging all of these things together can really help to not only embed it in the strategy, but then to also implement impactful programs and make a difference in the places where we work.
Totally. Thank you so much, Miriam, for this. I'm realizing we're almost at time, so I'm actually going to thank our panelists for this brilliant discussion and hand it to Barbara to close the session as well.
Yes. Thank you all for listening, and I'm very proud of the of the panel that we could bring the World Benchmarking Alliance with their results and feed it with practical examples from OFI. And it's wonderful that you that in the end we could all contribute, like Melissa said, we contribute to peace at the workplace. And we all are here with our different voices, voice as father, mother, daughter, sister, and also the voice of the employee and customer. So I would and I think this is a very powerful moment of for all of us to share the voices of breastfeeding, the participants of the work of the webinar. And because 7% only of the companies provide breastfeeding support, like the ILO said it as an international standard. So we have lots of things to do, but with the partnerships of the together with the CGF and the Workforce Nutrition Alliance, World Benchmarking Alliance, our Lighthouse OFI, we can make it. We can contribute to change. Thank you for participating. Thank you for contributing to bring peace and change into the world of breastfeeding. And see you next time in our next webinar with our Lighthouse leader, Olam Agri, on nutrition education. Goodbye.